Welcome to the Overcoming Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is Michael Leotta. This man here has suffered a severe injury where he lost his right arm, then a couple years later, injured his neck. He's here to tell us about his story of how he overcame these adversities and adapted to change. I can't wait to get into this conversation. Hey, Michael, thank you so much for being a guest on Overcoming Adversity podcast, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's my honor to be here.
Absolutely, man. So, we were speaking before about your story, man. I just thought it was so significant when it comes to adapting to change because I can't imagine losing a right arm and dealing with that. So, if you can, man, tell us a little bit about your story and what happened on that day, man.
Okay, yeah. It was back when I was 19, so it was back in 1982. And a bunch of my friends and we got off work and we were heading up to Angels Camp, California to celebrate my friend's birthday party. And we hit some black ice and I was thrown out of the Jeep and the Jeep landed on me. And I was in the hospital for about 2 months, and the result was that I lost my arm. And so, it was difficult to deal with at first because of my aspirations and goals that I had in my life, especially. I wanted to be in the military, and particularly I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. And so I went through a period of time where I was, I guess you would say, angry, because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to accomplish those things. And
Wow.
So there were some adjustments, but from the very beginning, I had to adapt, and that's kind of where my journey started. Is just right from the very beginning. I needed to figure out how to do things.
Wow. So let's go back a little bit, man, because I can imagine prior to that, you didn't know that. Obviously, you did not know that was going to happen. So growing up, what was like your life goals and dreams and aspirations leading up to that particular point?
Well, like I said, I wanted to be in the military. My dad was in the Navy, my grandfather, and I was already studying martial arts, started when I was about 11. So, my plan for my life was I was going to go in the Navy, hopefully become a SEAL, uh, be in the Navy for a while, come out, and then eventually open up a martial arts school.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, um, growing up, I was really in, me and my friends had hot rods and stuff. So I had the type of life where, my friends would hang out, we'd work on our cars, and, and I spent most of my time training. And so, yeah, when I lost my arm, it was like all of a sudden I felt like none of that stuff could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through a period of time where I was angry and just didn't feel like I was gonna, be able to accomplish anything.
So let's talk about the accident. So you guys went through black ice and the car flipped over and rolled over and you lose your arm. Being there in that moment, can you take us a little, if you can, take us through how many of you guys were in the car, and then after living through that, you have friends that was with you. Did they have any like survivor's remorse or anything like that, including like your anger of what happened was taking place? But did you get any feedback from your friends in regards to like them feeling sorry for what happened to you or anything like that?
Yeah, well, there was three of us in the Jeep. And my friend who was driving, and actually my best friend Jeff, and Clay, the driver. Yeah, he really felt bad. As a matter of fact, he had a hard time visiting me in the hospital, and he really felt bad about it. Even though I didn't blame him at all. Um, and my friend Jeff did feel really bad because no one else got hurt but me. And he expressed to me several times how he just felt terrible, and but from the very beginning, I didn't, I would rather it happen to me than them. So I just never really, that didn't even come across my mind. as far as that goes. But yeah, it was rough, being in the hospital for a couple months, and my friends having to, they came and saw me all the time. Our friend Jeff was there constantly, and my friendships and all my friends really helped me get through everything.
So let's talk a little bit about friends. I assume you have family, and you may have been dating someone at 19 years old. So how was the relationships with all of these people that were so close to you afterwards, knowing that their loved one just lost their arm?
Well, yeah, I went to my family. I've always had a really close family,
Hmm.
and so that was great support there. My parents were always supportive of me, and it was really hard on my parents, watching their son go through that. And but it was, I was dating someone at the time, and uh, things didn't work out, and for a while I thought it was because of my arm. So I went
Hmm.
through this kind of, oh my God, now I'm not going to be able to be with anyone. No one wants to be with me and stuff like that. Um, you know, but that changed quickly because I met someone right away. It's just, it's all about, it's in your mindset. And so I know it affected, in a lot of ways, I think it was worse on my family and friends than it was on me.
Wow. So you told me from this injury, man, a couple years later, you got into another car accident or you injured your neck. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was driving on the street, and I stopped for someone walking across the street, and someone rear-ended me going 45 miles an hour. And so yeah, so I ended up with 400 discs in my neck, and had to go through years of therapy and eventually the surgery. And that injury was in a lot of ways worse than my arm, because when I lost my arm, I was really able to adjust and adapt right away. In the martial arts, I changed my stance. I just used different techniques and stuff like that. But the neck, when I lost my or when hurt my neck, at the time I was training to get certified in Jeet Kune Do. So I was waking up every day at 6 in the morning and going to a student friend of mine's house, and we would train for a couple hours. And then I would go to therapy, and I was getting injections in my neck. And then a year later, I had to go test with Sifu Paul Vunak, and I was icing my neck all through the test, and it was just insane. But I remember when he sat down next to me, and we were talking, and this is a man who I admire my whole life in Black Book magazines, and I just couldn't, and I'm training with him. And then he says to me, "So, Michael, you certified?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." I started rattling off. I got a belt in this. I got a belt in this. I teach this. He goes, "No, no, I mean Jeet Kune Do." I go, "No." He goes, "You are now, bro. Make it official tomorrow." And that just, it's like the pain left my body, and it was just incredible. I can't even explain to you how incredible a feeling it was.
So going through two car accidents, I know that come with some serious, serious mental and physical challenges. You're one of resilience. Can you take us through that process, as this was a life-changing event too, as well? Of what were some of the things that you put yourself through to build yourself back up when it comes to like strategy that you had to implement in place?
Okay. Yeah, I always think about, like, the first time I really had to adapt was, it was about a week or so after I got out of that accident. My arm was still wrapped up, and my friend Jeff called me up, and we used to watch the David Letterman show and so he says, "Yeah, you want me to come and get you?" And I said, "No, I'm going to drive." And he goes, "Well, what about your fuel pump?" Because I had to change my fuel pump. And he goes, "I'll come over and I'll change the fuel pump." I go, "No, no, no, no. I'm going to do it myself." So I ended up going out in the garage, and it took me a little while, but I figured out how to do it. And I changed my fuel pump, and I drove to my friend's house. And it was like that started the springboard of me just concentrating on what I can do and not focusing on what I can't do. Um, and that led to me just implementing that further and further into my life. Um, and then there was a period of time, where I got in a lot of fights, yeah, and not as, mainly my my fights that I used to get into was me sticking up for people, and stuff like that. And to me, that was a big part of my growth, because as someone who's a martial artist and kind of a brawler in his life, I had to kind of prove to myself that I could still do it,
I
and I
see.
did. And and so it was really, and it's important to me because later on to my students, I always felt that it's important for an instructor to have real life experiences. I was a bouncer and a bodyguard and stuff. So all this stuff was like these slow little steps that I took to eventually me just absolutely believing that adapting was the key to life, really.
Man, that's amazing, man. I was thinking because some people are born with disabilities, but you're someone that was an able body, and then all of a sudden you went through losing your arm. And now thinking of going through the process of like either like proving yourself or people either trying you had to like some way defend yourself. So I like the fact that you were still able to operate and function within the mind like I could still do normal things that normal people do every single day and not get down on yourself, beat yourself up, and able to fight through that.
I think, yeah, it was important to me because, like, as a martial artist, I didn't want people to think of me as I'm a one arm martial artist. I'm a martial artist that has one arm, and I always tell people your disability shouldn't define who you are. And because
Mm.
I'm proud of the fact I'm disabled. When I go to training events where there's other instructors, I'm like, I'm the only one here with one arm, and I'm competing with these guys at the same level. When I used to bounce and throw people out of the bar, it's just like, dude, you're 6'5" with 250 pounds, and I'm throwing you out. So it's like And when I was training with guys, I trained a lot of military guys and stuff. So it just I used my arm as like this badge of of coolness, and I really think that people that are going through adversity have to understand that adversity makes you stronger,
Most
and if
definitely.
it really does. As a fighter, the fighter that gets punched in the face a bunch of times is the fighter that understands the battle, and it's like that's what it just makes you stronger.
So you've mentioned several times that you're a martial artist. Can you tell us about the style of martial arts that you practice and that you teach? And then if you can elaborate a little bit about when it came to you actually practicing and teaching it, what form of adaptability did you have to start bringing into your training and lessons when it comes to like yourself or for your students?
Okay, yeah. Well, I teach Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's martial art, and it's kind of a blend of things. Matter of fact, Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do is kind of known as the forefather to MMA because he took different systems and kind of combined them. So it's kind of like a blend of boxing, Muay Thai, Eskrima, Kung Fu, different types of grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and so yeah, me personally as an instructor, what I had to do is when I learned something, I had to figure out how I'm going to do it. Having one arm, and then I had to figure out how am I going to teach my students that have two arms how to do it. Because and that just made me, I feel like a better instructor because I really needed to concentrate on what's functional, and that's a big part of Bruce Lee's philosophy. People don't understand. I think they see a lot of stuff in the movies, but his stuff in the movies was more theatrical. But his practical martial art, the stuff that he taught, was about the individual, about teaching people according to their strengths and avoiding their weaknesses. So I was perfect for that because my whole thing was one of my philosophies in Adapt for Life is a functional reality. So when I teach my students, I look at what is functional for them, and then we make it a reality, and we discard what isn't functional. As an instructor, I think me losing my arm made me a better teacher because I was able to look at things from the aspect really clearly of what works and what doesn't work for my students. And and then having a real life experience as a bouncer and a bodyguard and all the scrapes I got into, I think was important because I think people need to understand, and when you're telling them something, that you've lived through it yourself.
I think going through adversity helps with building up resilience when you're facing it. But in addition to that, you've shown strength when it comes to mental toughness and grit. Can you tell us where did that come from? Where did that start from? Was that from childhood? Was that something that you saw in your dad? Was that something growing up in your neighborhood? Where did that come from?
Well, yeah. I definitely think I got a lot of it from my dad. But yeah, we grew up in a neighborhood. It was kind of a rough neighborhood in San Jose. So right from an early age, I was kind of getting in scrapes. And I got picked on when I was in third grade by a bigger kid in the fifth grade. And it went on for a couple of weeks until one day I kind of snapped and I kind of like beat up this kid who was bigger than me. And then like ever since, and this is before I started martial arts, so it was just like I just always kind of had this mentality. And I got, like I said, my dad was in the military, and I always just admire. I was watching Bruce Lee and the Kung Fu, the series Kung Fu, and Chuck Norris, and I was just always wanted to be that guy. I remember just telling myself, I'm going to be like that. When I walk into a room, there ain't going to be no one in there I have to worry about. That's what drove me constantly. And I mean, my friends, you know, I was just constantly training, constantly just in my backyard with the punching bag or at my class or whatever it was, I was training. And I just that's what was always important to me. I didn't care about making money. I didn't care about anything. I cared about that, you know.
So looking back at it, man, and thinking about your journey, what would you say are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned about yourself?
Well, but I think it comes down to um, I really learned that I had to accept who I was, um, and that's very important to people, whether you have a disability or whatever it is, but you need to accept who you are, and I needed to also understand that I can make these changes, um, and that's really what drove me, is understanding that I am the way I am, but for me to get better, I need to make changes. That's why I'm so big when I teach about adapting and change, because um, because I looked at myself and I saw flaws. As a martial artist, I need to work on my groundwork, or I needed to better, my jab better, or whatever. That's easy. You can look at that and say, I need to go train with a boxing coach or go train with a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. But when it comes to mental stuff, you need to do the same thing. And that's kind of what I did. Is I looked at myself and I said, you got a lot of anger issues, dude. If someone looks at you the wrong way and you're ready to pop them in the mouth and stuff. And it was, and it was because I needed to make changes as to who I was, inside, and not be so angry about the fact that I lost my arm, not be so angry at the fact that I couldn't be a SEAL and stuff. And once I started realizing that, um, I just started making these changes to myself emotionally and mentally, and which actually helped me in all aspects of my life, getting into a good relationship and so forth. Um, and then I also really rely on what I call self responsibility. It's one of my philosophies, because I believe everything in your life is your responsibility, whether someone did it to you or not. You put yourself in a position for it to happen, and how you deal with it is what matters. So once I started realizing, hey, dude, if there's something in your life that you don't like, change it or discard it, and that's kind of like been my thing. So it was this big, like, look at yourself, see what's wrong. And I believe that you should tell yourself what's wrong and don't let other people tell you what's wrong. You should look in the mirror. Because when other people criticize you, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It comes down to you criticizing yourself and you making these changes. And there's nothing wrong with you looking at yourself and saying, hey, you suck at this, or you need to change this, because that's how you get better. And that's how you're going to get in a better relationship. That's how you're going to get a better job. That's how you're going to get, in martial arts or whatever it is you're into. That's how you're going to go further, by, criticizing yourself and making these adaptations.
I 1000% agree with you, man. I think we are the common denominator to our decision, the direction where we go, and the destination that we go to, man. If you can
Excellent.
talk a little bit about the Adapt for Life formula, you mentioned that earlier throughout our conversation. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, what that is.
Okay, yeah. Well, the formula is adapt, evolve, and prosper. And so, how there's these formulas within it, and one of them is functional reality, where you look at everything through the spectrum of what is functional for me, and then make it reality. because I
Mm-hmm.
believe there's a core of functional, what's functional for everybody, and then there's individual functional, what's individually, what's good for you or not good for someone else. And then I have this other philosophy called rivers and streams, this formula that where your goal should all be like a river that is fed to by streams. So everything you do is these little streams, and those streams should be adding to your river to make it strong, not fighting against the river.
Mm.
And then respond, not react. I believe it's one of the keys to life is not to react. It's physically, it's easy for me to explain. Someone throws a punch at you and you squint your eyes, that's a reaction. Yeah, that's not good. You need to parry it or slip it. That's a response. And then true confidence. I believe that you have to have confidence in yourself based on the truth, based on reality. Giving yourself false confidence hurts you in the long run. So whatever it is that you're trying to acquire in life, you need to look at yourself and make it real, and not just tell yourself it's real. And I think that hurts a lot of people, in the long run. So the formulas are kind of designed as a circle where it's like they feed each other. And I came up with the concept, just for years of me dealing with what I was going through, and then my students would ask me for advice and stuff like that. And then I just started slowly, dissecting, why are you successful, Mike? Why are you good at this? Why are you bad at this? And, that's where the formulas kind of came in place.
Man, I love it, man. I love it.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you're a man of faith and you believe God has a purpose for your life, even going through your situation. Can you talk a little bit about how big your faith is in regards to going through that and dealing with it? And you could have easily given up, you could have easily quit, you could have easily played the blame game. But how big is your faith on your journey, man?
It's very big. I've always been, believe in Jesus, and I believe in, for a while I was angry. Like, God, how's this happened and stuff like that. But in reality, I believe that there's a reason why I have one arm. And it's because God knew that I was strong enough, and God also wanted me to have one arm so that I could help other people deal with situations in their life. And I truly believe that. And my faith is very important because it centers me. It also, gives me this hope, because I believe, in Jesus, and I believe in his message. And it also is kind of a part of the core of my teachings, because one of the formulas I preach about is called strength and honor. And I believe in, having the strength to do the honorable thing. And I believe a lot of what's honorable comes from God. The way you treat people, your attitude towards life and people, so faith is a very big part. And I believe everyone should have faith, whether it be, Jesus or whatever your faith is. You need to believe in a higher purpose, a higher thing, because otherwise there's nothing to check you.
Correct.
If and so, yeah, it's been this really important part of my life forever. I'm Catholic. My family was raised Catholic, and I just it's so important, to have that in your life, because without it, I feel you're just out of balance.
Most definitely. So, Michael, you know, at face value, some people might get in have doubt or misconception, right? Saying this guy lost his arm, he can't do things. If you can speak to our audience that's listening to our show, what are some misconceptions that may be out there that you have already proven that you can go against the odds? You could actually accomplish great things. You could go out here and start helping people. Can you give some advice, some lessons that are some key takeaways where they could shed those thoughts and shed those beliefs and just empower them with some of the things that you've experienced?
Okay, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, don't let other people define who you are. You define who you are. And if you look at yourself in the spectrum of what's functional for you, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Because if so it's about focusing on the right things. For example, me, I lift weights as part of my training. bench press. Well, obviously I can't bench press with one arm, so I created a little adapter thing that connects to my right arm, and I'm able to do flies. So I adapted, and I, went on and continued to train. So you look at yourself and understand that you can accomplish anything if what you're trying to accomplish is functional for you. Don't listen to other people. I've had doctors, I've had people in my life always tell me, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, look, when I got certified in Jeet Kune Do, my doctor was telling me, you can't be training, you're going to do this, you're that. And I was like, whatever. And even to this day, I'm in physical therapy right now because of my neck, and it's just like, I just keep going. So it's like, first of all, don't listen to other people, listen to yourself. If you want something, go out and make it real. And like I said, be honest with yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Are you, 4'1" and you want to be in an NBA center? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Be
yeah, yeah.
functional in what you want. But once you decide what you want is functional for you, do everything you can to get it. Don't listen to other people. Don't listen to your doubts. As long as what you're balancing with it's functional for you, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Really, really, there isn't. And I'm proof of that because, when you think about it, what it took for me to be certified in Jeet Kune Do, I had to go for a 4-day training thing, right? Sparring and grappling, weapons, boxing, just multiple attacks, all this stuff. And it's just like, I did it, and bouncing, everything I've done in my life, construction, I've built rooms in my house and stuff. So everything I've done because I just said, I'm going to do this. And I made sure that it was functional for me and I did it, you know? So my message to people is just don't listen to other people. You criticize yourself, figure out what's right for you, and just go for it. And make sure you adapt through your path, through your journey, whatever you're going through. You got to always adapt. Adapting isn't a one-time thing. Adapting is for life. That's why I call it adapt for life. You just constantly have to adapt. As an instructor, when I was younger, I used to train 6 hours a day and go teach all night long. Now, at 60 years old, I can't train like that, but I still train and I still teach and I still, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm at a level in my life where I'm working on my podcast, my books, all these projects I have. So it's like I've adapted and become different because that's what life's about. I'm a grandfather now, it's just everything, and you have to adapt. And that's another thing in relationships, people refuse to adapt. You have to adapt. If you're single now you're married, you can't be the same way that you were single when you're married. You have to make these adaptations. Then you become a parent, you can't be the same way. You always have to make these adaptations. And those the people that adapt are the ones that thrive.
Man, that's so true, man. Through hearing your story, it's so remarkable, man. One of the things that sticks out to me is mindset, and you had a clear mindset shift, man. Can you share with our listeners how important it is to have that type of mindset that you had of resilience, of stick-to-itiveness, the can-do attitude, and just being totally resilient and awesome, man? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. Mindset is very important. As from a warrior standpoint, it's everything because how you think about yourself and how you portray yourself is important, but it's the building blocks to you being successful. You have to have, like, a lot of people today have the victim mindset where something happens to them and they concentrate on what happened to them. And I'm like, don't concentrate on what happened to you, concentrate on how you're dealing with it. Your mindset shouldn't be on this is terrible, this sucks, I'm going through this. Your mindset should be, this is how I'm dealing with this. This is how I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do to this. So mindset is key. I mean, when I first lost my arm, my mindset was I'm going to beat everybody up in the world.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it didn't get me very far. It got me in a lot of fights. That's all it got me into. When I changed my mindset and started thinking, no, dude, you couldn't be a Navy SEAL, but you can still open a martial arts school. You can still do this. You can still do that. You still work on your cars. I mean, I had a Corvette, and I took it all apart and put a big block in it and did all that stuff, because, my mindset was like, I'm going to do this. It wasn't, it's all about your mindset. And, going back to the philosophies, your mindset is balanced with reality. And when you do those two things, you're going to soar, you're going to accomplish anything. So, look yourself in the mirror and say, you don't be a downer on yourself, because you're your worst enemy. People are always their worst enemy. You're the one that's going to be the determination of whether you succeed or don't succeed, whether you're in a good relationship or a bad relationship, whether you're happy in your life or not. Placing yourself in the right mindset is key. It really is.
Absolutely. So, Mike, I know you got some big things coming up, man. I heard you got a book coming out. I know you got a podcast that you're working on, man. Can you tell us a little bit about what you got going on with some like your goals and your aspirations?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I got my book, Adapt, Unleash the Power of Change, which is kind of like it's half of it's like my history, my story, and the other half is about my philosophies. And that should be hopefully we're looking to hopefully have it out about Christmas. And I have my podcast, the Mike Leo Show, but I also have another project that I've been working on called the Marcus Knight Project, and it is a superhero that I came up with, who's a one-armed superhero who gets his powers from the Archangel Michael. And so that is something we're looking to turn into a comic book, and then hopefully eventually a Netflix type thing. So those are my projects that I'm working on, and like I said, it's a just journey. I've adapted, and I spent decades teaching and stuff like that, and now I'm going to this next phase of my life where it's like I'm still a seafood, I'm still teaching, but these are the projects I'm working on. This is what drives me, and I get up every morning and I'm like, I look forward to working on these projects, just as I looked. And it was again, it's like doing a podcast was different for me. I'm used
Right.
to kicking bags all day long and getting punched in the face, and then all of a sudden I'm doing a podcast. It's just a different thing. And but it's that's what life is. It's a journey that you're always adapting. So my projects, hopefully soon you'll see the Marcus Knight story everywhere. It's and then my book. Um, my book is very important because I think when I wrote the book, I really wanted to gear it towards veterans, people that lost their limbs or got injured in war. And when I came up with the concepts of Death Life Formula, that was my mindset. And then over the years, it grew to, well, everybody needs this, you know, and because I'm a big supporter of troops, and I believe that our freedoms and everything comes, they fought for us and stuff like that. And as a warrior myself, I look at people and I think it's so important for you to continue to have that warrior mindset. I think everyone should have the warrior mindset,
Yeah.
at some degree. So my future projects are really me teaching people my philosophies, and through the podcast and the book, and hopefully I'm able to change some people's lives and help them deal with some of the stuff they're going through.
Well, Mike, I believe that you will change some people's lives, man, through your book, through your podcast, and definitely through the comic book. I got a collection of comic books right here too, man. I've been collecting since I was a kid.
All
But
right, cool, yeah.
what I want to say, man, is whenever you do decide to get into all those things and like it's getting to wherever direction you're trying to get it to, just let me know, man. I know quite a few veteran organizations because I do some things with them too as well, where we have tons of veterans that are amputees that has lost some limbs through war or even after war. So I have some friends that have been in some car accidents that has lost legs or have been paralyzed, and I think your story would be truly, truly inspirational to them, man.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, I would absolutely love that, Michael. That would be incredible. That's like I believe that's kind of like my purpose, why God gave me one arm. It really is. It's for me to help people. They really because I always say, God give me one arm just so I can be a one armed guy beating people up. No, it's a higher purpose.
Most definitely,
So
man. Man, so before we get out of here, man, for our audience that's listening to this podcast, can you leave us with some lessons from your story that they could take away and make an impact into their lives today?
oh sure, absolutely. You know, personally, the main thing is like we talked about is adapting. And my message is, don't think that where you're at is where you're always going to be. Emotionally, physically. you know, you have to understand that life is a journey, and you're not going. And there's different points in your life. You can look at my life. I'm in a very happy marriage. I've been married for 24 years now. I have 4 stepkids. I have 4 grandkids. I went through a divorce, years ago. Not a good relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like life is about adapting and overcoming things. So when you look, my message to everybody is, I've had to do. I'm going to be adapting for the rest of my life.
Right.
And it's difficult. As a guy who's 60 years old, who's used to, you know, not being 60, and you just as a martial artist, like I said, I'm used to getting up and I throw 200 kicks on this, 200 this, doing that. Now I'm like, you better only make it 60, and so it's like life is this constant adaptation. And my message to everybody is, adapting should be your first go-to. It should be an automatic thing, like breathing. When you're no matter what it is in life, embrace change, because change is growth. When you change, you grow. The world is going to run you over unless you make changes. And look at us right now on doing this podcast. you know a few years ago, there wasn't podcasts. You
That's
know what I'm
true.
saying? So
Yeah.
we want everything in life changes constantly. And so my message is, from my personal story, is that the reason why I'm successful isn't because there's anything special about me. It's just because I kind of figured out a long time ago that adapting is the key. And I harnessed it. So harness adapting, embrace change, be functional. Look at yourself, criticize yourself. Respond, don't react. And live your life with strength and honor. Do the right thing, which gives you strength.
Absolutely, man. So if anybody wanted to book you on their podcast or call you for a speaking engagement or come and get some martial arts lesson, how can they find you, man? How can they reach you?
Well, you can get me at Facebook, Mike Leo, MICLEO at Facebook, or my podcast is the same, the Mike Leo Show, and then my website is sifucorp.com, SIFUCORP.com, and my phone number's on there. You can call me directly. Yeah, and if you want some lessons, yeah, it's martial arts is incredible. Everyone should do martial arts because it gives you confidence. It makes you real. There's nothing in the world great about going wherever you're going to go and knowing that you can defend yourself and your family. It just opens up doors for you, you know, and changes your mindset. So my advice, another thing I would like to tell people: wherever you're at, train with somebody. Find a legitimate, good instructor and train with them. It's just it'll change your life.
Absolutely, man. Mike, well, it's been a pleasure to hear your story, man, and having you as a guest on the Overcoming Adversity podcast, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. It's been an honor and pleasure being here.
Absolutely. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you share it with a family or friend, as we know that tons of people in this world is going through adversities. Until next time, God bless.
Sorry. Can't complain at all. Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for clarity.